He was sitting upright in bed, completely still. The room was dark except for the nightlight near the baseboard, and my son was looking at the corner of the room. Not at me, not at the door, just at the corner. And then, in this very quiet, matter-of-fact voice, he said, "But you died here." He was 4 years old. I didn't know what to do with that. Welcome back. If you're new here, this is Whisper Vault. I'm James. Last week, we talked about the woman who kept receiving voicemails from a number that had been disconnected for 11 years. That one stayed with me. This one will too. Tonight's episode, I've been calling it My Son's Imaginary Friend, came to me through a listener. She submitted it through the site about 2 months ago. I spent some time going back and forth with her, filling in details, making sure I understood the timeline. She's asked to stay anonymous. I'll be telling this in first person, from her perspective. Her words as much as mine. Let's get into it. My son was 4 when it started. His name, for tonight, is Eli. Eli was the kind of kid who talked constantly. From the moment he woke up until the moment he finally surrendered to sleep, there was noise coming out of him. Questions, observations, half-formed theories about how trucks worked or why the sky changed color. It was exhausting in the best possible way. I was a single parent by that point. It had been about 8 months since my ex-husband moved out. So it was just the two of us in that house, and Eli's noise filled it in a way I was grateful for. We'd moved in about a year before everything started. It was a rental older house, good bones, quiet street, the kind of place that felt solid. The landlord had done some work on it between tenants. Fresh paint, new fixtures in the bathroom. It smelled like a house that was trying to feel new again. I liked it well enough. Eli loved it immediately. He ran through every room on the first day and claimed them all. The hallway closet was just off the main corridor between the living area and the bedrooms. Standard bifold door, the kind that sticks if the humidity is high. Inside, extra blankets, a box fan I never used, some cleaning supplies on the top shelf. Nothing remarkable. Nothing that would make you look twice. Eli started talking about Daniel in the spring. Maybe April, maybe May. I don't remember the exact moment it began because it didn't begin dramatically. Crept in. One day he just mentioned Daniel in passing, the way you'd mention anyone, like he was filling me in on something I should already know. Daniel thinks we should have pizza tonight. I think I said something like, "Does he?" and handed him his cup of milk, and that was the end of it. Imaginary friends are normal. That's not a reassurance I had to talk myself into. I genuinely believed it. I'd read enough about child development to know that imaginary companions are actually a sign of healthy creative function. Kids process the world through play and narrative. They invent people when they need them. Eli had been through a significant change that year. His father leaving, the move, starting at a new daycare. Of course, his mind built him a companion. I didn't think much about Daniel's name. I didn't think much about where Daniel supposedly lived. That second part, I'll come back to that. Over the following weeks, Daniel became a regular presence in our household. Eli would set a place for him at the table sometimes, though not always. It seemed to depend on whether Daniel was around. He'd report Daniel's opinions on things. Daniel didn't like the sound the radiator made. Daniel thought the backyard was too muddy. Small, harmless, slightly odd observations that I filed away as the natural texture of a 4-year-old's imagination. At some point, I'm not sure exactly when, I noticed that Eli always situated Daniel in the same place. The hallway closet. Not in his room, not outside, not some undefined elsewhere the way imaginary friends usually exist. Specifically, reliably, the hallway closet. "Daniel's in his spot," Eli would say, walking past it. His spot. By his door. I told myself it was just spatial logic. Children anchor things. They need imaginary elements to have a fixed location, a place to belong, the same way they need their stuffed animals to stay on the same shelf. The closet was near Eli's bedroom. It made geographic sense to a 4-year-old. I left it there. But something about it sat slightly wrong with me. Not enough to say anything. Not enough to push back or ask too many questions. Just a low, almost inaudible frequency of discomfort that I chose not to tune into. Then came the night I heard him talking after bedtime. We had a routine. Bath 1 book, lights out by 8. Eli was usually asleep within 20 minutes. Not that night. I was in the kitchen, cleaning up, and I became aware of sound coming from the hallway. This soft, one-sided murmur. I turned off the faucet and stood still. He was talking, too quiet for me to make out the words. I went to his bedroom door. It was slightly open, the way I always left it, enough that the nightlight's glow reached into the hall. I could see the edge of his bed. I pushed the door open a little more and looked in. He was sitting up, cross-legged, facing the far corner of the room, the one near the window. He wasn't looking at anything I could see, just talking quietly the way you talk to someone who's close to you. I was about to go in and tell him it was time to sleep when I heard what he said. "No, Daniel, you don't live here anymore." A pause. Eli was nodding slightly the way children do when they're listening. "But you died here." I'm not sure how long I stood there after that. A few seconds, probably. Long enough for the cold feeling to move through me and settle somewhere around my sternum. Then I pushed the door open fully and walked in. Eli looked at me without surprise. No guilt, no embarrassment, no sense that he'd been caught doing something wrong. He just looked at me the way he always did, like I was simply the next expected thing. "Hey, buddy," I said. My voice came out steadier than I felt. "Who are you talking to?" "Daniel." "What were you two talking about?" He thought about it for a second. "He's sad." I sat down on the edge of his bed. I wanted to be careful here. I didn't want to scare him, and I didn't want to dismiss him either. I asked as gently as I could manage, "Where did you hear that? What you said about Daniel dying here? Who told you that?" Eli shrugged one shoulder. "The house did." I looked at him. His face was completely open. No performance in it. No sense that he was trying to be mysterious or scary. He said it the same way he'd tell me what he had for snack at daycare. I got him back down, tucked him in, sat with him until his breathing slowed. I kept the hall light on that night. I just didn't feel like walking back through that particular corridor in the dark. I didn't sleep much. I lay in bed and turned it over. "But you died here. Where does a 4-year-old get that?" Television, maybe, though I monitored what he watched pretty carefully. Something from daycare. An older kid, perhaps, saying something he'd absorbed without context. Kids collect fragments of language and deploy them in ways that seem far more significant than they are. That's what I told myself. But in the morning, over coffee, while Eli ate cereal and watched his show, I sat with my phone and looked up the rental history on our address. I didn't find much, just the property listing with a couple of photos from when it was last put up. Then I found the previous owner listed in the county records. A married couple. their last name, an address in another part of the state, and a phone number that looked like it might still be valid. I stared at that number for a long time. I told myself I wasn't going to call. I made lunch. I took Eli to the park. I came home, did the laundry, made dinner. After Eli was in bed, no whispering that night, nothing unusual. I sat on the couch with my phone and called the number. A woman answered on the third ring. I introduced myself, told her I was renting the house. I kept it light, apologized for the out-of-nowhere call, said I was trying to learn a little more about the history of the place. We talked for a few minutes about the house, the roof that needed attention, the quirks of the heating system, normal stuff, and then I mentioned the closet. I'm not sure why I framed it that way. I think I said something like, "My son has taken a real interest in the hallway closet. I was just curious if there was anything particular about that area of the house." The line went quiet. Not the quiet of a bad connection, a different kind, the quiet of someone deciding something. "Why do you ask?" she said. Her voice had changed, not dramatically, just tighter. I didn't know what to say, so I told her the truth. I told her about Eli and the imaginary friend. I told her about the closet being his spot. I kept my voice neutral, like I was relaying facts and nothing more. Another silence. Then she said, "My brother passed away in that house." I didn't say anything. He had a seizure. He'd had them before. We knew about the condition, but this one was different. He was in the hallway. He collapsed against the closet door. She paused. He never regained consciousness. I asked her very carefully what her brother's name was. She said, "Daniel." I want to be honest about what happened to me in that moment, because it would be easy to dramatize it, and I don't want to do that. I didn't drop the phone. I didn't scream. I sat there on my couch in my quiet living room and I felt something move through me. Not fear exactly, not yet. Just a profound and specific wrongness. The feeling of two things fitting together that had no business fitting together. We talked for a few more minutes. She was shaken too, I could tell. She didn't know what to make of it any more than I did. She asked how old my son was, and I told her, and she got quiet again. Before we hung up, she said, "I hope he's okay." I said he was fine. I thanked her for talking to me. I sat on the couch for a long time after that. Daniel was a real person. He had a name. He had a sister who still picked up the phone. He had died in my hallway, against the door of the closet that my 4-year-old had designated as his spot, and my 4-year-old had been talking to him at night and knew, somehow from somewhere, that he had died in this house. I didn't sleep at all. The next morning was a Saturday. Eli woke up in a good mood, no different than usual. We had breakfast. I watched him closely without trying to look like I was watching him closely. He was just himself, chatty, distracted, already negotiating for screen time before 9 a.m. At some point, he went to play in his room. I was sitting at the kitchen table with my coffee going cold when he appeared in the doorway of the kitchen. He said, "He's upset." I looked up. "Daniel," Eli said, patient as a small professor. "He's upset because you asked about him." I asked Eli how he knew that. He looked at me like it was obvious. "He told me." I kept my face still. I said, "Okay, what else did he say?" Eli thought about it. Nothing else. Just that. He wandered back toward his room. I sat there for a while longer. Then I got up, walked to the hallway, and stood in front of the closet. The bifold door was slightly ajar the way it sometimes got. I reached out and pulled it closed. The latch clicked. I didn't open it again. That afternoon I called my mother. I didn't tell her everything, just that I'd been feeling uneasy in the house and was thinking about whether it made sense to find somewhere else. She thought the neighborhood was too quiet anyway. She said if I was unhappy, I should move. Sometimes that's all you need someone to say. Over the following week, I made calls. I talked to the landlord, gave a vague reason about needing to be closer to Eli's new daycare location, and he was understanding enough. I looked at a few other places. There was a ground floor unit about 12 minutes away, more expensive than I wanted, but it felt right when I walked in. Clean lines, nothing that required adjusting to. I signed the paperwork at the end of that week. We were out of the house in 3 weeks. The move itself was unremarkable. I packed in stages, tried to keep Eli's routine intact so he wouldn't feel the disruption too acutely. He helped carry things, took pride in being useful. The last day, when the rooms were empty, I walked through them one more time. The way you do, checking corners, making sure nothing was left behind. I stood in the hallway for a moment before we left. I didn't say anything. I don't know what I would have said. We left. The change in Eli was immediate. That's not an exaggeration, and it's not something I constructed in hindsight to make the story neater. The moment we were in the new place, the first evening, unpacking his books and setting up his small bed, Daniel didn't come up. Not that night. Not the next day. A week passed. 2 weeks. A month. I waited for it, the way you brace for an aftershock. I half expected Eli to say something, to report in, to tell me Daniel had opinions about the new apartment. But he didn't. At some point I realized I'd stopped waiting. I never brought it up directly. I didn't want to plant anything. Didn't want to reintroduce a name that seemed to have settled back into wherever it came from. The few times in those first months that I tried carefully to ask about his old imaginary friend, keeping it light, framing it as just a question, Eli would look at me with the mild confusion of someone who doesn't understand the reference. He didn't remember Daniel, or if he did, it wasn't in any way he could access or articulate. Whatever it was gone. Except for one thing. When Eli walks past a closet in a house he doesn't know well, someone else's home, a new place, somewhere he hasn't been before, he glances inside, just for a second. A quick, sideways look, barely a pause in his stride. He doesn't say anything. He doesn't react. He just looks. I've watched him do it enough times now to know it's not random. It's specific to closets. And it's specific to unfamiliar houses. He doesn't remember Daniel. But he still checks closets. And I've never asked him why. If you're listening in the dark tonight, keep the lights off a little longer. This has been Whisper Vault. I'm James. Until next time.
Do you feel it? That quiet dread? The walls can hear